finished watching Sailor Moon Eternal Part 1 and 2, and let me just say, it lived up to every single expectation I could possibly have as an OG Sailor Moon stan. Period. Disclaimer, there are going to be spoilers. Sorry. But if you haven't watched the movie by now, what are you doing? Exactly. But, spoiler number 1, Tuxedo Mask. Okay, can we all agree that the rose stuck in his heart? It's implying that he has COVID. Like, are we not going to talk about how him as well as Usagi both got COVID, and that was just like a little symbolism for COVID, was the little rose in their heart? If you don't notice, like, Usagi started getting sick after she started spending more time with her mans, and then she got sick. Like, no. You can say, oh, well, like, other people were also around him and they were hanging out and they didn't get sick. Yeah, but they weren't all up in his face. Usagi was the only one that was, like, all up in his face. Like, Chibiusa was not. But can we discuss this movie was perfect for those into bestiality and pedophilia. Sailor Moon Eternal is the perfect movie for furries and pedophiles. It's definitely something that you cannot watch and have self-awareness for. Like, if you're a socially conscious person now, it is hard to watch. But you also have to remember, most of us were introduced to it as children, where we didn't have that, you know, that voice in the back of our mind, like, this isn't right, because this is just not right. Because, of course, if I had seen it back then and I was like, oh my gosh, she kissed the horse, I wouldn't mind anything of it. Like, even back then, like, Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask's relationship never struck me as odd, because I always coded them as same age, you know? But now as an adult, I know that it's weird. I'm like a high school student and a med student. Like, that's weird. I know they're supposed to be together. I know they're supposed to end up together, but that's weird. And then Chibiusa is into him. And I'm like, man, that's your father? Like, that is your father. Don't do that. That's weird. But whatever, you know, I get it. Their human forms are different than their celestial forms. Whatever. There were just really odd tones throughout it. First it was bestiality, then it was pedophilia, emphasis on the pedophilia. Then there was this whole, like, weird COVID subliminal messaging going on, and it was like doctors couldn't detect what was wrong with him, but for some reason there was something wrong with him that wasn't detected until it was basically, like, too late. The black rose had already bloomed and was dying at that point. I guess that this was probably the most socially conscious anime movie I have ever seen. Like, I could definitely apply this to real life. What is there to say about this movie? So many great things. I loved the nostalgia aspect. They really did tie it true to the original anime, which I love. The art style, amazing. If you've already seen Sailor Moon Crystal anime, like, same art style, obviously. But I love that they continue on with what the anime didn't finish, or kind of, not didn't finish, but left unanswered, since the anime did essentially finish in 2014. To see that they completed it and carried on instead of doing the typical anime movie fashion of, oh, here's a movie that has nothing to do with the plot. It's 100% unrelated. You don't have to watch the anime at all to understand what's going on. It's really just a gimme for the fans of the anime itself, you know? That's not to say that it's warding off people that haven't seen it, like the actual anime, but it's really just like a huge thank you to fans, which I do appreciate, because it was like, you know what, we kind of ended it on a sad note in the anime. Let's tie up these loose ends. Let's give everyone a little bit of closure. Spoiler alert, let's give Sailor Venus, or Mina, let's give her her powers back. Let's have Usagi and Chibiusa get their powers back, and it's all gonna be good. And the other Sailor Guardians make an appearance, which ladies, gays, theys all love. Like, damn, wow, didn't mean to cuss. Wow, what a scene. I'm going to start dressing like the Sailor Guardians, them in their human forms. I'm gonna start dressing like that, because wow, Okay, that's aside from my blabbering, I guess. Let's discuss like the issues in the plot. Don't hate me, but I don't think the antagonist of the movie should have been the antagonist. It was kind of unclear at first. I mean, I get it. She's trying to take over Earth because Earth has no guardian and da-da-da. Not to play devil's advocate, but I feel as though that was just her reaction to being rejected and trapped in a mirror. When she was first given, some sort of context or a backstory, I looked at that, and to hear her say that you need balance, if there's light, you need darkness. That's true. I 100% agreed with her, and I didn't understand why they tried to cast her away. That just seems so wrong. Maybe I've watched Maleficent way too many times. Maybe I've heard too many stories about Medusa or something like that, but I genuinely didn't think that she was 100% in the wrong in saying that. You would just have to watch the scene to understand what I'm talking about, but I'm gonna insert a little clippy clip. But that specific scene, and she just comes out of the shadows. She wasn't invited because no one knew about her. If no one knew about you and they kind of just wrote you off as like a witch and evil and all of these things, like, wouldn't you feel bad? Wouldn't you feel bad? And then you try and explain and they're just like, no, you're an evil witch. What? Not her being a euphemism for black women. What is this? Like, it was really a really socially conscious movie, I feel, if you observe it that way. So yeah, I didn't understand why she was the antagonist. I also don't understand what happened to her mother, the woman that looked like Yzma, and she was in control of the Amazonians, also known as the other Sailor Guardians, but of the asteroids. But I was just like, what happened to that old lady? I don't know. And I can't even remember, like, what happened to her. But yeah, you don't get to understand the Sailor Guardians' perspective of why they don't like this woman until it's further addressed. Like, it's addressed in the future, and they're like, oh no, she only wanted to spread darkness and chaos. Like, they literally have to clarify that. And I was like, oh, okay, like, that makes a little bit more sense instead of just ganging up on her because she's like, you need balance. It was giving Raya and the Last Dragon. It was giving Raya and the Last Dragon with, like, we're both to blame for our problems, but I'm not gonna take accountability. It was giving that, and I didn't really like that, but I understood why it happened. It just struck me as odd when we get that tea shop scene, and then you have, I believe he was the owl character. You have the owl character in his human form, and he's wearing a dress, and it's so beautiful, right? And she's just and Sailor Jupiter's just so trusting of him, and I'm like, girl, you don't know this man. You don't know him. Like, what are you doing? Why was there no red flags? It's like crazy. Cause look, I'm just built different. I'm simply built different. If I had seen, or I had known, oh, there's a circus in town. Okay, cool. The Amazonians look like this. Here's a character that looks like he could possibly know them based off the way that he looks. Why would you trust him? Like, what is going on? Like, why would you trust him? The fuck? Like, that is your enemy. And you took something from him? I don't know. I feel like a lot of the situations that the other Sailor Guardians got themselves into could have definitely been prevented. But it was pissing me off so much when they couldn't just easily, like, trap the Amazonians. Like, they never went to go look for them when they would jump off from a scene. Like, they never did that. And it confused me so much. I was like, what? They're not that fast. Like, that's impossible, right? You guys aren't even looking around for them, and they're literally just on top of a building. And then I realized once it was revealed that they were actually guardians of the asteroids, I was like, okay, the writers did something here. Like, they're not gonna have them have a one-on-one combat to the death kind of thing with other Sailor Guardians. So it was really beautiful to see that, just like that tie-in. All in all, I genuinely enjoyed this movie. Like, wow, it was just so satisfying to watch. Because every time they did a transition scene, like, and they were transforming, I was like, chills all around. And the way that it made me feel was the way that it made me feel when I was, like, a 5-year-old watching Sailor Moon. And I just got that same, like, satisfaction from it. And I loved it. So yeah, I think they did great. I hope in the future Sailor Moon series they, you know, decide to do anything with the franchise outside of this. I hope they carry on and progress with the story instead of retelling stories and focusing on Usagi. I feel as though we saw really good character development with Chibiusa that we don't normally see. Like, she's normally kind of that bratty little sister character, but here we get to see her kind of reach that, even though she's not a preteen, we see her in that element of like preteenness. It's not a word. But we see her in that era of being a preteen despite her not being a preteen. And it's just like you see her grow from this essentially a baby to a key character. And with emotions and depth and feelings. But we truly get to see kind of her little progression. And they allude to her coming to full form eventually. I just hope that they decide to bank on that, and I hope that that section kind of gets a little bit more hype, so then the showrunners can look at it, or someone can pick it up and be like, you know what, let's bring back Sailor Moon in a couple of years or so, and let's refocus the plot point. Let's focus it on Chibiusa instead, and we can have Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon as their own, you know, a unit, and they're older and they're just kind of watching out for Chibiusa, and we're introduced to a whole new realm of characters because the Sailor Moon universe, it's not as expanded as something of like Marvel, you know, so it's not like, oh well, this crosses here, there's so many other characters and they all have their own spin-offs. With a lot of animes, they don't really do that where they give spin-offs to the other characters. It's not really like, I feel like it's more so an American or a Western thing to do for the sake of a money grab, is to give spin-offs, whereas with anime, like, you don't really see that. And I feel like there are a lot of solid characters in animes that do deserve a background, or, you know, like that development or the progression period to be displayed. And I hope that happens with Chibiusa, because I would love to see her in her, you know, her Usagi era, where she's like 15, 16, going through her own thing, settling with having her own Sailor Guardians, or deities as they're called. But I think that would be really cool to see. They could keep it as cheesy as possible. Doesn't change the fact that Usagi is totally taking Goku, and Goku would be dead on the floor. So, period.